All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Stearns Stories, which is the podcast of the Stearns History Museum. Today I'm joined by a special guest, local potter, Joe Singewald. He was going to be our Breakfast Club speaker this month, just earlier this week, but this is the next best thing we can do with Joe. So he's graciously taken time out of his day to talk to us a little bit about pottery and how he started working as a potter. Eric is good friends. Our curator, Eric, is good friends with Joe. He's supposed to join us if he gets his technology in order. But if not, we're just going to have a conversation, the two of us. So, hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks a lot.
How's working from home going for you?
When this all started, I thought I'd have lots of time in my studio. I just figured, it'd be kind of like a at-home residence, but with helping the kids out and everything else, I really haven't made not nearly as much work as I thought. But
yeah, I think that's how it started out at the beginning. Everybody saw this opportunity for productivity, but that has kind of gone away for a lot of us. So
I think so. They're wrapping up school, so hopefully I can transition a little bit more down there. So
yeah, summer's coming. Lots of time in the summer will be good. So we're going to talk to Joe about his pottery. First of all, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, where you're from, that sort of thing?
Yep. Yeah. So I grew up in Northeast Iowa, Waverly, Iowa, and didn't have any knowledge of handmade ceramics until an older brother started bringing home pots from high school ceramic class. And I was kind of taken by it, just the fact that he had these objects that he made that were permanent. And I really just wanted to learn like how that was possible. At that time, I was 7th or 8th grade, and I did a lot of work in the wood shop. So I was creative in that way. And I remember instructors, teachers in the wood shop that I'd present ideas and they just thought they were pretty crazy because they were more artistic in nature. But my brother took me to a local studio, and kind of showed me how to make pots, and that kind of got things rolling. I wasn't able to take a class in high school until I was a sophomore. And I was really not good at it at all. I couldn't make a pot on the wheel. It was frustrating. And what it kind of took was a local potter came in and did a demo, and his techniques were a little bit different than my instructor, and that was just kind of enough for things to start clicking for me. And his name's Doug Reynolds, a great guy. And I ended up working in his studio a little bit in high school because in the summer you can't work in the studio. So I'd go to Doug's, and he had a really cool studio, and fired with him. So from there, I went to school at River Falls, UW, Wisconsin, River Falls, and started environmental science and art minor. And after about a year and a half, I kind of realized I should flip those and be an art major. And but that kind of took just being in the studio, and Randy Johnson was the instructor, and he exposed the students to a world of people that were making pots and handmade objects that I never knew existed. And seeing that and meeting these potters in the area made me realize, wow, there's something here, and was enough for me to feel like I could pursue it. And so I really credit him for that. And I also wonder at times, I'm like, man, would I even be doing this if I went to another school without that influence and that inspiration and friendship? So did that, and a couple years between undergrad, and I was a potter, I was a mailman, did anything I could to pay my bills and still make pots. And then went to grad school at Utah State, and really good studio there with friends for life, that the group that was there, the environment, and it was a really good time to be at school at Utah State. And did that and moved about 9 times from there. And now I'm living in Cold Spring, work at St. John St. Ben's as their art department technician, and teach ceramic classes there when one's available. So
Cool. So, a lot of people have said like the Southwest is like, if you want to do pottery, like that's a good place to be. Is that what made you go to Utah? Is that just a cliche stereotype?
well, Southwest has a distinct pottery aesthetic, kind of blackware, painted like low fire pots and red and blackware. Utah State, I went there because, well, Utah's kind of a hard place for art. There isn't a whole lot of support for it, and if you want to make a lot of work and sell it, it's really challenging. But John Neely and Dan Murphy head up the ceramic program at Utah State, and they really created a really strong kind of hub for functional pots, wood-fired functional pots. Even though when I was there, not everybody was wood-firing, not everybody was making functional pots before making sculpture. But when I went to visit before I applied, just felt like the right place to be. The people I met, the students, the interactions, it's just like, it was a very creative atmosphere. So and it's, there's a lot of schools where you can go and they'll throw a lot of money at you. There's a lot of financial support. Well, Utah State really not so much, but that really didn't matter to me. I'd rather go to school that felt right than someplace that, well, maybe I wouldn't have as much student loans, but I wouldn't have had that interaction with great people or
Right.
professors.
It's the price you pay when you go into any kind of art post undergrad study.
Yep.
So I think it's interesting that you said you didn't like take to it right away. So a lot of times when you think of people who pursue art, it's like, oh, they just have it in them and it's just something that they're born with. But it's interesting to hear that you had to at least work a little bit to find the technique and stuff.
Well, it's easy to relate to students because I still remember that frustration, and it is hard when you watch somebody that can make a piece in not a lot of time and looks easy. And but the thing that I always tell them, the thing to remember is, anybody you see in any museum and any book, like, they didn't start making work like that. It was a progression. They all started making in the same beginner pots. Mm-hmm. So try to keep that in the back of the head. For sure.
That's good advice for any vocation or hobby or anything like that. It doesn't, for most people, it doesn't just flow right away. For the rare, people, it does, but not usually. So how long have you been in Minnesota?
Well, I've been at this position for 5 years at St. John St. Ben's. Before this, I was working at Inver Hills Community College for about 4 years, doing similar work. Hopefully someday I'll get a teaching job somewhere.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Yep.
So I wanted you to talk about the pottery tour that you're involved in, the St. Croix Pottery Tour. Tell people what it is.
Well, I wish I was it's like every potter's dream to be an invited artist on that, but that's one of the reasons I kind of really got into ceramics too, is this opportunity that there was a sale not terribly far from far from River Falls when I was a student, and you could go see these incredible artists, their home studio, meet them, and just handle lots and lots of high quality pots. Just like walk through the displays and see how they make a handle, see how different people approach cutting a foot and finishing a pot. And it's just a huge educational tool, and truly inspiring to see that, and then to see so many people coming and supporting those artists. And yeah, the St. Croix Pottery Tour, it's going on. This was the 28th year, and it had to be all virtual, so online shops.
Yeah.
So not nearly the same, but kind of opened up, I think, probably to people that aren't able to come, that live, quite a ways outside the upper Midwest. They were able to see some of these great potters pieces and purchase online. But yeah, 28 years. I think there's 7 studios, all mostly Chisago County, and I think over 60 invited artists. So, and I think, yeah, like I want to say I heard those invited potters come from like 16 different states, a couple coming from England.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a huge tour, like maybe 5,000 people shop. They don't go to every stop, but that's I think an estimate I heard. And
So is that like do a lot of potters that get invited and get to sell their pottery at that tour, is that like the bulk of their income for the year, or is that just like
I'm guessing it's a good chunk, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people come, like it's really fun when you're going this tour. Just great energy. People like look forward to it all year. It might be the only time they buy a handmade object in the entire year. It's like you can't have a sale the following weekend and expect to have a turnout like that. It becomes an event. It's always Mother's Day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I think they keep track of people that come. Like people come from 20 states just to come to this region and buy pots, and even internationally. Like I heard, I think Matt Krause told me 6 or 7 countries they think people came from recent years to just shop pots. People fly in, buy work, have the host ship it out. It's really incredible. It's I don't think there's another sale like it, and it's really close here. I think Matt Krause's from St. Cloud, is an hour maybe, and he's kind of the furthest west, Harris, Minnesota area. And yeah, it's really, really unique, and I think inspires a lot of people like me to want to make work and try to sell work.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask, is it like the biggest tour of its kind for potters in the country, or are there others like it?
There are. There's kind of hubs throughout the country where there's really strong work, lots of support, and definitely Minnesota mostly because of Warren McKenzie and his influence. Warren taught at the University of Minnesota for a number of years and started making work in the early 50s, 1950 or so, and kind of has created a environment in the state of handmade pots, and many great students that he taught and are still making work. And so he's kind of the granddad. He passed away about 1.5 years ago, but his influence is everywhere. So he really built up a interest in ceramics in this area. But there's other places, North Carolina, there's a lot of ceramics going on there, and um, around Philadelphia. But there's kind of these little pockets, and it's always interesting to be like, man, there could be some of my favorite potters in this area that people out east have no idea who they are. But there are probably people out there that I have no idea who they are that I'd probably really like their work. So, yep.
Yeah, I was watching just a little video. I don't know if it was last year or the year before about the pottery tour, and it just made me kind of sad that I didn't know it existed. It would be really fun to go, and this year, obviously, that wasn't an option. Then I thought about the weather this last weekend and thought maybe you guys dodged a bullet there.
Yeah.
But it still would have been fun. Does it bring out like what kind of people, like you said, some people fly out? Is it like people looking to buy pottery or just art enthusiasts? Like what kind of people flock to this thing?
Yeah. It's a pretty wide variety. It seems like there's a lot of young, maybe college kids, or at least some of those, and then probably for the most part, fairly mid-aged folks and beyond that maybe have been coming to it for 20 years or so. And you see a lot of people that do the tour with friends or family, and it just becomes an event. And I usually go 2 days, like Friday and either Saturday, Sunday. I'll drive, and I can't go to all the studios, but I'll go and go to my faves or whatever, and buy a bunch of pots. But if you just go to a stop, for me at least, I get to see a bunch of friends that are selling their work, and I see a bunch of friends that are shopping too. So it's like, I know for my wife, when she's came before, she's like, man, we can never get you out of there to go somewhere else, because it's just all of a sudden somebody will walk down the lane that I haven't seen for a long time, and it's just a really positive environment. It's fun.
So how did the virtual version go this year?
Well, I talked to a couple people that were involved, and sounded like it was better than expected.
Good.
Never. Yeah, anytime you do any of this, you have a sale or whatever, you just never know. You put out flyers, you send out a mailing list, set everything up, and just hope that people come. So I think that's good that it was better. Obviously, it's good that it was better than many people expected.
Well, hopefully by Mother's Day 2021, we are able to have the real one again, because it looks like a really fun time. Very interesting to see all the different pottery. I wanted to ask you about your pottery that you do. So what kind of, are you more artistic? Do you do more functional pottery?
Yeah, I always say tableware, functional pots that I hope are used, and all stoneware, so high temperature pots. Right now, mostly gas-fired pieces. Do some wood firing too. School's got a wood kiln that we fire with the students every semester, and then a lot of times in the summer too, we'll fire it. So, but yeah, plates, mugs, pitchers, bowls. So, closest place you can find my work is at the Minnesota Street Market in St. Joe, downtown St. Joe. So I have pots in there. And
okay. Is there like a separation, like in the pottery community, like between people who do artistic work and people who do functional work? Like, is there one that thinks they're better than the other or anything like that? Or is it all pretty cohesive?
Yeah, it's pretty cohesive. That's pretty interesting. There's a lot of ceramic sculpture going on right now, and a lot of it's really good, and a lot of it, I guess, I have a hard time getting on board with. But it seems like a lot of times it seems like there's galleries out there that are showing more and more of that sculpture work and less of the functional ceramics these days. and I don't exactly know why that is, but yeah, I really don't know, but
It seems like if you went to a place like St. Croix Pottery Tour or any kind of sale, that most people would be in the market for something functional, or is that
yeah, that tour is all functional. It's all
okay?
ceramics. Some tours there's mixed arts. There'll be fiber arts and ceramics and paintings, but this one their philosophy over the years is just keep it ceramics, functional pots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the stuff looked really, I mean, in that 2-minute video that I watched, all the stuff looked really, really cool. And it's something hopefully we get to experience again next year. Do you have any work that you want to share with us?
Sure. I got pots all around me right now. You
Okay.
can't even tell it. But I can start talking about
Ooh.
this porcelain cup that Clary Ilian made. She's a potter outside of Iowa City, and I got this. Every pot has a story. That's one of the best things about ceramics. But I got this at this conference years ago in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, at Airmont. It's a craft school down there, and they have this really sweet conference called Utilitarian Clay, where only about 300 people can attend, and then there's workshops that some of the best ceramic artists in the country are doing demos, and it's really a unique place because it's not many people. You stay on campus, you can have lunch with these great artists, and so I was down there for it, and kind of in the checking it where everybody's checking in. I'm like, holy cow, Clary's here. She wasn't hosting or anything, but it was such a great event that potters wanted to be there, even if they weren't presenting. And one of the things they do is cup exchange. So you bring a cup, and then they draw whatever, a name, a number, and then you go home with somebody else's cup. So I saw her checking in. I was like, wow, Clary's here. I'm like, cool, she brought a cup. Well, this is what she brought. I got it. So
Oh, nice.
it's really fun. But this, for when I teach classes, I'll have students, or I'll bring in a bunch of mugs, and we're talking mugs, and I'll just have everybody handle 20 different mugs, and everybody's different. We have different comfort, different aesthetics. So I always ask, which one's your favorite? Kind of the point is that everybody, for the most part, picks different. There's always overlaps, but I can't bring this to that exercise anymore, because last time I did, it was about 85% people said this is their favorite, because it's just so comfortable. The volume's really nice for coffee. Some gestural lines from working on the potter's wheel.
Wow.
But it seems like a simple thing to make, but I've tried making this single finger. It's not.
It's tough.
It's not relying on a fancy glaze. It's just a clear glaze on porcelain. Doesn't have any decoration. It's just the quality of the craftsmanship in it. So
Yeah.
there's that one. This one I actually bought at the tour this year online. This is Steve Rolfe. He's a potter in River Falls, and super great guys. But his pots, not really a complex form. It's basically a straight walled cylinder, and but like just this is really well thought out. It's not just to pull it off the wheel, move on to the next one, mass produce. The more I make, the more I can sell. This is like this little belt here. This is consideration of where that is on the pot, the handle, and like that beautiful curve, but yet it's really comfortable. The attachments of the handle are just perfect where it's attached here. And the texture, knowing that texture, how it's going to affect the glaze, it's really nice, soft satin. Like using this mug is totally different experience than if you're using a mass-produced mug
like this.
yeah. You know, like
Yep.
this is just a vessel,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to contain coffee, just like a styrofoam cup would be. But like this, you're like, if you're using something like this, it's an experience. It's an observation of what you have. For me, you know, I know Steve, and I can think about him in conversation. What, you know, like you think about the maker a lot of times, especially nowadays when you can't really see any of these people. So that's cool. He's on the tour too. This is Matt Metz. He's also on the tour, and I guess it wasn't intentionally but that's where I buy a lot of my pots. So this is a porcelain that he throws and then puts a iron slip on and carves all these designs on it. So really beautiful cup. It's got a nice amber glaze on side. But what I always say about Matt's pots, like if he didn't do any of this decoration, this would still be a super great cup to drink out of. Like the lip, the balance, like a really well-made pot that's not relying on this to be successful, even though this makes it cool. Even better.
Mm-hmm.
So, what else we got here? Here's mentioned Warren McKenzie earlier. This is a jar that was gifted to me, a wedding gift, but it still has the sticker. $20.
Wow.
It's squared off. Just this really loose quality of throwing it on the wheel and altering it. You know, taking advantage of that softness of the clay and having it recorded. Really doesn't do it justice seeing it on the screen, but there's one very similar to this in the Wiseman Museum. Chino glaze, big fan of Chino glazes. I can keep going.
Let's do a couple more.
Okay. This guy.
Oh.
This is Japanese Seto ware, a couple hundred years old.
Wow.
And one thing that I love about this has got some serious weight to it. It's substantial. It's made to get knocked around, and it was. There's like a chunk missing out of the back of it, and there's crack.
Yeah.
There's even chunks that happened before it was glazed, but just you can tell you can see these cracks in the glaze that are kind of been visible with the use over time. And there's these little these are limestone that they would put on the glaze so that they could stack another one on the kiln, stack them up to utilize the space. Well, this pot I got from my buddy Byard. He went to Japan, and I took care of his golden retriever for a month or so. And when he came back, he had to ship these back via boat, so it took about a month.
Wow.
And he had this one and another one that was a little smaller, and glaze wasn't as nice, it was a little more green. And he said, you know, thanks for taking care of the place and the dog, you can pick which one. And so I picked the green one, and he says, screw you, take the better one. Because he knew, and I knew, and I wasn't going to take his best one after shipping it back, but that's what kind of guy he is. So.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep, that's a favorite. Michael Simon, he potter in Georgia, and probably my favorite potter. His pots have just this great movement. They just feel really good. That handle is about as great as you can get. I don't know. He's a favorite. I went down to visit him a long time ago, and just happened to be there the day he unloaded his salt kiln, and he let me pick from everything that wasn't going to a gallery, and I got a tall cup and a plate, and I wish I would have bought more because he got leukemia like a year later. Hasn't really been making work as he once did. But so this pot really educated me. This lip, I could tell that after he made the spout, he gripped this lip and pulled it up to give it some really nice movement. Totally different than a flat lip. So I never really liked making jugs until seeing his pots and handling them and seeing that. So this is one of my jugs, and I've obviously done the same. And just kind of depends on which pot. Sometimes you'll get a little more lift than the other ones, but super big influence. Some of my favorite pots.
So do you use all those, like to drink coffee, pour water, eat whatever?
Yeah, like a lot of these we don't use every day, mostly because of the fear of my kids breaking them all, which they have broken a lot of pots, which is fine. It's part of using them. But then I do like some of these favorites, like this clary cup I'll pull out and use and wash and put it back downstairs. I have a lot of pots, too many I haven't covered, so I kind of do a rotation too.
Nice.
But you know, I don't know. I love using jugs at meals or we have people over, and it's just like
Homey.
it makes the difference in just the meal time. It's like, oh yeah, this is functional. It's fun to use. It's right there.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have one, but having one around kind of makes the meal.
It elevates it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, cool. So do you have, is the St. Croix Pottery Tour, is that still, can people still buy stuff online, or is that just over?
I think so. I think if you go to their webpage, which is minnesotapotters.com, I believe, or you just put in St. Croix Pottery Tour, it'll come up. Okay. And I believe there's still a list of everybody involved, and you could click on their web store. And I'm guessing some of these people are such rock stars. They sold out, in minutes, everything they had on there. So, but yeah, but the cool thing too is a lot of those websites you can go look and even just see their work and not necessarily even have to buy it. That's what I'm always telling students. Like, man, the more work you can see, you're just going to learn from it, influence it, be influenced by it. So you don't have to buy it,
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put the link in the description of this so people can click on that if they want to. Do you have a site or anything where people can look at your work, or?
No, I play the Instagram mostly.
Okay.
Facebook, but my webpage is pretty poor. I don't want to give that out.
I mean, social media is kind
work on that.
Where it's at anyway right now. So, but I'll try to post something, at least your handle or link at the bottom, so people can check out your stuff if they want to. Do you have anything else you want to share with the audience?
I'm sure something that I'm forgetting. No, it's the hardest thing about doing this is just trying to educate people on like why using this mug is, a better experience than something else. Mm-hmm. And it's hard, it's the hardest thing, or why this is better made than something that somebody, like using this, the experience is like the skill that he has and everything he thought about that went into making this. And that's different. It's a different experience than if somebody makes a handmade cup, but makes it really fast, is not concerned about these elements of the comfort of the handle, the comfort of the lip, bounce. They just want to make a lot of pots and try to sell them, and which is fine, but I guarantee if you're using one of their pots versus this, it's a different experience,
Right.
It's handmade, but
even someone like me, like I don't get the artistic ins and outs of it. I'm, not learned in the arts or anything like that, but there's something kind of indescribable about it, like what you're saying. It's just something you can feel, whether you know the reason you feel it or not. Like I know I've coveted lots of different mugs and things at pottery stations, but have never like chosen to purchase because it's too expensive or whatever. But no, I think it's true. It's definitely something you feel. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. Sorry we couldn't get you in the actual Breakfast Club, but maybe sometime down the road when that exists again, we can invite you back.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us. Good luck with the rest of the semester.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Bye, everybody watching.